Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a quick snow event which is going to be moving throughout parts of the Great Lakes and the interior Northeast for later this week and even into the weekend. This is not going to be nearly as widespread as the previous one. It will be mostly elevation snowfall in parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, as well as some areas down in Pennsylvania, southern New York, maybe down into even some of the higher elevations of Massachusetts, but really for the most part this is going to stay interior. It's also going to stay in the high elevations with most of it. You could see some mixing along parts of coastal Maine, maybe even into Michigan or Minnesota, but again, this is going to be fairly tucked away to the north, but I still do want to talk about it and at least give you guys an idea of what to expect. I'm thinking that I'll probably have a snowfall forecast out for this storm either tomorrow or the day after, since we are still a couple days away from it, so there is still some time before we actually have to put out a snowfall forecast. So here's a look at what the current National Weather Service page looks like. You can see that we do have some high wind warnings up into parts of Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Wyoming, as well as some wind advisories into parts of South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, and also into Idaho as well. We have red flag warnings up into parts of New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Nebraska, Wyoming, and South Dakota. And then we have a few freeze warnings into western Oregon. But other than that, we really don't have a lot going on in terms of watches or warnings today. Yesterday we saw a high temperature of 94 degrees. That was 13 miles west of Winter Haven, California. The tide high temperature was also in 17 miles east of Brawley, California. They also got up to 94 degrees. The low temperature was 0 degrees in Salina, Minnesota, where they got again down to 0, and that's in the northeastern part of the state. And then the highest rainfall report was in Mount Baker, Washington. They got 5.33 inches, and there were even some reports up in British Columbia of up to 7 inches of rainfall. But again, for this purpose, we only go into the United States. So we don't cover Canada in terms of the extremes, because that would just be harder. They don't have as much data up there, so it is harder to get their extremes in terms of the temperatures, the precipitation, snowfall, things like that. So I'm just sticking to the continental United States. But if I were to extend that up into Canada, you would have seen that the highest rainfall report would have actually been close to 7 or 8 inches, because they did have some flooding, unfortunately, up into this area. So hopefully everybody's okay over there. I think one of the highways got shut down, so that caused some issues. So that was the big story yesterday in parts of the Northwest, and that area of rainfall has been moving over Washington, Oregon, and even into parts of Canada over the past few days. So they've been getting pretty much non-stop rainfall up there. Yesterday, we also had a high snowfall report of 11 inches. That was in Chatham, Michigan, and Rumley, Michigan, both in the UP, and they're right next to each other. So those towns are pretty much right across from each other in the central UP of Michigan. So let's take a look at the European model and what it's showing for this event. Again, this is going to be a quick trough, which is going to be shoving its way through parts of the Ohio Valley and the Northeast. We don't have too much cold air ahead of the system, so we might have a little bit of shallow cold air into parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. But in terms of anything really outstanding, we don't really have anything crazy in terms of the snowfall or the ice or anything like that. Again, this is going to be a quick event from pretty much Wednesday night through Friday morning in a lot of these areas. So again, it's going to be a quick one, but I still do want to cover it because you will definitely get a little bit of snowfall in some of these spots. So moving this through Wednesday evening, we do see some of that snowfall moving across parts of southern Canada. Areas in Montreal will probably stay on the rainy side, but if you get into the eastern or northern suburbs, especially a few miles north of the city. That's where you'll start to get in on a little bit of mixed precipitation, and then further east into some areas closer to Quebec City, you guys will be getting in on some light to moderate snowfall. They could even pick up closer to 2 to 3 inches in total out of this event. Moving this on further, this is by again late Wednesday evening into Thursday morning. We have a little band of rain moving across the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. We have still more rain up into the interior-most Northeast, and then we're starting to see a little bit of a mix of rain, snow, and ice up into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. That's going to continue, and we're going to see this initial wave of snowfall move throughout Quebec City and northern Maine over this period. This would be for early Thursday morning, so we do have a little bit of snow moving up into those spots, and that will cause a little bit of issues, but again, it's going to be a quick light dusting of snowfall, nothing that should be awfully severe. Moving this through Thursday morning, you can see that we still do have some of that snow into easternmost Maine. We have a little bit of a mix right in the middle, and then everybody else is in that rain by this point. By this time, this would be Thursday in the later morning, so we're talking about 4, 5, 6 a.m. Eastern time, and we have that's rain all the way up that Montreal to Quebec City corridor, so those areas completely under rain by this point. Really only Caribou, Maine is under snowfall, but the rest of the Northeast dealing with just rain or dry conditions, maybe a few clouds if you get further to the south, but really nothing too crazy out of this event. Then we're going to get this next little wave of energy, and behind this one is this little wave right here. We do have some colder air, so you can see that into Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, and that's going to be diving to the east. Now, the real question is, does this get close enough to that rain and precipitation to form up a little bit of snowfall on the western edge? And that's where we're going to get most of or the majority of your snowfall into these areas. So this would be the early afternoon, late morning, and you can see we have that one little band of rain into the Ohio Valley and the interior Northeast. You're going to see that that moves further to the east, and then as we get to the evening hours of Thursday, we do see some snow or maybe mixed precipitation breaking out into the Adirondacks of New York. Then as we get to Friday, well, this would actually still be very late at night on Thursday or maybe very early on Friday morning. You can see that we have some mixed precip into parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, really isolated into those highest elevations by this point. It does get a little bit more widespread into some of the Berkshires of Massachusetts, also into some of the Green and White Mountains and through parts of northern and western Maine. So you guys could definitely get in on some snowfall. And then also on the back end of this, so for early Friday morning, we might have a little bit of lake effect moving in for western Michigan, for parts of New York, Pennsylvania. Wouldn't even rule it out over northeastern Ohio. So those areas could definitely get in on some lake effect rain or snow. I would assume that areas closer to the coast will probably be more in a rain, and then once you get further inland, that's where you'll get in on the snow for the most part, and then eventually that moves out. Again, this is a really quick moving system. We're not going to see too much impacts out of this, but I still do want to cover it because, again, I do have quite a few viewers from Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and also in upstate New York, so I just at least want to get a video out on this to keep you guys updated. And again, tomorrow or maybe the day after, depending, I'm leaning towards tomorrow, but might be the day after, I'll have that snowfall forecast out for this event. But if you guys want a early forecast for your area, I'm not going to put a map out just yet, but if you want an early forecast for your area, just leave a comment down below with wherever you're from, a town name, part of the state, anywhere that I would be able to give you a forecast for, and I'll definitely do that within a couple hours of you posting that comment. So system moves out by Friday morning. So you wake up on Friday and you at least have maybe a coating of snowfall on the ground, or if you're on the rainy side of things, you might get some puddles out on the roads. But either way, you wake up for a decent morning commute on Friday, and moving into Saturday, it's just breezy and cold. So those are really the only two issues. It will get warm out ahead of this system though. So for, let's say, Wednesday evening and Thursday, it'll actually be fairly mild, especially compared to what we've recently been dealing with. But then it's going to go back into a colder pattern by Friday and Saturday. So here's what the European model is showing for snowfall totals, and this is just, again, an early look at what we should be expecting. Again, these totals are not off the chart. We're looking at maybe a couple inches up in northwestern Michigan, maybe a few more into areas like Erie, Pennsylvania, and south of Buffalo. We have a couple inches also into the Adirondacks, maybe 1 or 2 inches into the Green and White Mountains, as well as the Berkshires. You might get a few more inches than that in parts of northern New Hampshire and right along the border with Canada. And then looking for those folks up in Canada, again, Montreal, probably not dealing with any snowfall. You might get a little bit of snow, very light coating on that northernmost area of the city and into those northern suburbs. And then also you go up that corridor into Quebec City, and those areas could definitely get in maybe 1 inch of snowfall, 2 inches of snowfall if we don't see too much melting upon contact. You get north or south of the city, and you'll start to get in maybe 2, 3, 4 inches of snowfall, depending on where you are within that area. Looking at some of the Atlantic provinces, so for Newfoundland, for example, we're dealing with maybe just a coating to 2 inches of snowfall, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall further to the north. Again, this is going to be a lighter snowfall, especially compared to what you probably will see later on in the winter. Here's a look at the GFS. You can see how similar these two are. The really only exception that we see is that on the GFS, it's a little bit more bullish in terms of snowfall in coastal Maine. That is one part of the storm that is a little bit on the rough side in terms of weather. You'll see some snowfall there. There is another chance of snowfall in this area for early next week. So even if you don't get snowfall from this event, you always have the chance of getting snowfall from the next one. But eastern Maine, in that area, especially along the coast, is where we have a few more issues and things that we have to kind of refine in terms of the forecast. That would also give more snowfall to areas in Nova Scotia. So if you live up there, that would definitely be something that you want to pay attention to. You maybe would get an inch of snowfall. Either way, even if you do get an inch or 2 of snowfall, that's a quick shovel in the morning, maybe a morning workout, just shoveling out your driveway, and then you go off to work. So really wouldn't be too big of a hassle, and I think a lot of it would probably melt by the time that you wake up in the morning, considering that it will be pretty warm. It'll be 33, 34. It really won't be a deep cold that we're going to be setting into. Moving this on to the Icon model, which is the German model. Fairly similar, although it does shift some of the snowfall in New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, a little bit further to the south. So you can even see that maybe getting down into some of these parts of Connecticut, New Jersey, and northeastern Pennsylvania. I don't think that's too likely as of right now, and even if it were to come down here, it would mainly be in the form of light flurries, not accumulating at all to any surfaces, and it would also be in the highest elevations of those areas. So you'd have to get pretty much above 1,800, 2,000 feet, right around that prime spot to get some snowfall out of this event that far to the south. But for the rest of these areas, the Catskills looking at maybe 2 to 3 inches of snowfall, the interior Northeast and northern New England also looking at maybe 2 to 5 inches of snowfall. Montreal, Quebec City, you guys will be looking at 0 to 2 inches of snowfall for the most part out of this event. And then the one that's a little bit more on the crazy side in terms of the snowfall, and even still it doesn't show too much snowfall, is the RGEM, or the Canadian model. It does show a lot more for Quebec City, so you're looking at this model's estimation maybe 2 or 3 inches, but also for the interior Northeast and areas like northern and inland Maine, as well as northern New Hampshire and eastern Vermont, you guys would be dealing with maybe 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. And then we look at the Adirondacks, the Catskills, 2 to 3, maybe into some of those lake effect zones, also 2 to 3 or 4 inches of snowfall. Michigan also looking fairly consistent on most models, that you'll see about an inch or 2. So overall, these are just a couple models that I want to show you guys. just to give you a couple opinions on what may happen. Right now, I'm leaning towards a blend of the European and the GFS. Again, the only area that I'm a little bit less confident in, and the reason that I'm holding out on making a snowfall forecast just yet, is going to be that southeastern corner of Maine, as well as for parts of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So I just still do have a little bit of a doubt in terms of whether you'll see snowfall in that area, and if you will see snowfall, how much you'll see. And then also some of these amounts have been changing around. So again, it's a big deal whether you go from 2 inches of snowfall to 6 inches of snowfall, even though it might not seem like a big change when you look at it as a whole. But when you look at some of these individual towns, you could see anywhere from 2 to 6 or 7 inches, especially in areas like northern Maine or northern New Hampshire. So I want to make sure that I'm at least refining that a little bit more and not leaving such a big room for error on a snowfall forecast like this, because again, you look at it and it might just be a minor shift, but that minor shift could move an entire town in or out of a big snowfall zone. So I just want to kind of fine tune how much snowfall is actually going to fall out of the storm, and then also just some of the positioning, especially of the lake effect bands. We still need to figure that out as well. So there's a few things that I want to fine tune over the next couple of days, and that I'll be looking at and monitoring. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure you are subscribed, make sure you have those notifications turned on, and if you would like to, please leave a like on the video. If you have any questions or comments, and if you want a personal forecast, just leave a comment down below, and I'll be responding within a few hours. And also, if you have any weather photos that you want to send in and that you want to have featured on the channel, just send them over to my email address, which is elitheweatherguyyt@gmail.com. It's also in the description down below. Just write a general area from where that picture was taken from. So for example, you could write, just as an example, you could write Northern Vermont. It does not have to be a town name, it does not have to be anything too specific, but just so that we have a general idea of where you took that from. So again, that is going to wrap it up for today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.